is Coxie, and this is going to be part 29 in our FPS tutorial series. So what we're going to do today is something requested by one of you guys. I think it's been requested before as well, if I'm not mistaken, but Ballin, who has commented on quite a few of my videos and supports me, has actually asked if we could do an enemy that actually shoots a projectile at the player. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to do this. I haven't really done this before in the 3D game, but I've done this quite a fair bit in 2D, but we should be able to figure this out if we just take it step by step. So basically, what I did was I tried to find an enemy that actually has a gun for free, and I couldn't actually find anything that I wanted, but there was, if you just type in enemy in the search, there was this enemy robots package that was free, and one of the robots has a Gatling gun, so I just went ahead and got that, and I just dropped him in my scene here. If you have a look, yeah, the folder's called enemy robots, and in the prefabs you've got two to choose from. You've got machine gun and cannon. I just grabbed the machine gun little dude and I just dropped him in my scene there, and I just disabled the zombie enemy that was here so he doesn't annoy us while we're trying to get this working. So I'll just disable that zombie again. So we've got this little dude here. He's pretty cool. He's got like a little laser on top of his head, so I don't necessarily want to use that. So this is it here. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable that laser. You can leave it on there if you want, but yeah, I'm not really going to need that. So all I've done to this robot is I've added a shoot point, and I've just put that at the end of the barrel, obviously, just like we do with all our shoot points. And I just put this muzzle flash here as well, just for a bit of extra effect. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've done to him. So we can go ahead and get started and try to get this little dude to actually shoot at our player. So first things first, what we'll do is we'll go to our scripts, and on our enemies I'll just make a new script and I'll call it enemy enemy shoot. Okay, what the hell just happened then? Okay, that's weird. So open up enemy shoot, and get rid of all this stuff. So what we're going to want to do is, you've got to think about this logically, and we want this little dude to be able to shoot a bullet at our player. So we're going to need to make it so that this guy will actually follow the player for a start, so he's actually facing the player when he shoots. Otherwise it's going to look a bit stupid if he's like facing over there and then the bullet, you know, shoots towards the player if the player is standing over in this corner or something like that. So we obviously want this little guy to track the player, and we already have code that allows us to do this in our enemy AI, so we could probably just use something similar to that. And we're also going to need to make him shoot some type of projectile. We could use raycast as well, but I thought I might try to use an actual rigid body projectile so that it's a bit easier to see what's happening, considering that I don't really well, I have some idea of how to do it, but I don't really know, you know, exactly how I'm going to do it. So let's just get this guy looking at the player and actually instantiating some type of projectile to start off with. Okay, so if we go back into our script, we're going to need a projectile. So we can just do a game object and call this projectile. We're going to need to track the player, so we're going to need a reference to our player. So we could have a private transform and call this, we call this target, which is going to be our player, obviously. And what else are we going to need? Let's just start with this, and we can always add some more later, because this should be able to give us the basic two things that we need. So what we'll do is we'll do void, and we'll do our start function, and in here we'll have to make a reference to the player. So we'll say that target equals game object dot find game object with tag. Make sure it's object and not objects. Find game object with tag, and the tag we want to find is the player, because we know that our player is tagged as player, so that's already done for us. And this is actually a transform, and we're using game object to find it, so all we have to do is just do dot transform, and that should be fine. Yep. So we've made a reference to our actual target, and we're also going to want a timer, of course. Yeah, we want a timer because we don't just want the projectile to just, keep coming out constantly. It'll just be a big straight line of projectiles, one after another, without any sort of timer in between each shot. So we will do a float, and we'll just call this fire rate, and that can equal 0.2 f, because it's a float. And then we can just say void update, and in our update we will say if actually, first of all, we'll say fire rate minus equals time dot delta time. So we'll start off at 0.2, and then we will just subtract from that using time dot delta time, which as we've talked about before, time dot delta time is a good one to use because it'll be the same for every single person regardless of what your frame rate is. Yeah, so we'll use that, and then we can just simply say if fire rate is less than or equal to 0, then we'll want to actually shoot. So let's do a shoot method. Whoops. And in here we can just say instantiate. Oh, have we done our shoot point? We didn't do a shoot point. Yeah, we need a shoot point too. So we'll do a serialized field, transform, and shoot point. So we need somewhere for our bullet to come from. So instantiate projectile. We want to instantiate it from the shoot point dot position, and rotation can just be the shoot point dot rotation. And that should be fine. So then we'll just call shoot here. But we also need to be looking at the player. So let's go to our enemy AI, and it's this line of code here. Actually, we'll need this. So we'll copy that, paste that there, and then this line as well. Oh, we're also going to need a turn speed, obviously. So let's just chuck this one here, and we're going to get an error because we don't have turn speed. So we'll also do a serialized field, and we'll do another float, and this has to be called turn speed, and that can equal 5. So this will be how fast the actual enemy tracks the player. The lower it is, the slower he'll track the player, and the faster it is, obviously he will be looking at the player at all times, no matter how fast the player is moving. So, and as we've done with the other enemy, we just slurp it so that it's nice and smooth. And we get the direction is the target's position minus the transform position. I think that might be back to front for this. I don't know. We'll test it out and see what happens. We can always switch it if it's not right. So yeah, that should be fine. The other one was this one. This line of code we added was to stop movement on the Y direction. So we don't need that. So I'll just save this. We'll go back into Unity, and we're going to need to make a projectile. So if I just deselect everything, go up here to create sphere. And of course it's way over there. I should have actually just put this somewhere so that we could have found it, but that's alright. Let's just put it there for now. So we've got this sphere, and this can be our bullet. I'll just make it, I'll make it pretty large so we can actually see it to start with, so we can see how it's behaving and what it's doing. So I'm just going to change all the scales to 0.2, and this is going to be our enemy projectile. And it's already got a sphere collider on it, and we're going to need a rigid body for sure. We'll take off use gravity. If you leave use gravity on, as this travels over a longer distance, it'll actually act like a real bullet and drop. But I'm just going to turn gravity off for now. And what you also want to do when you're using rigid body projectiles, or what I do, is I will change it from discrete to continuous. And what this does, because when you're using a rigid body projectile, if it's moving fast, it may not always register when it hits something if it's going too quick. Like it may hit a collider and not register because it's going too fast. If you have it on discrete, that is. If you have it on continuous, it will pick up every single collision. So that's what I use when I'm actually using a bullet, a rigid body bullet. So that should be fine. Let's put that in our prefabs. And then we can just get rid of that. on our robot, we can find our enemy shoot script, add that. So we can just chuck our projectile straight in there. We've got our shoot point. So make sure you set these up so that they're actually in the right positions. So I've got my shoot point there. I've just set mine up roughly. Make sure you get yours set up all good. So yep, we got the shoot point, and our turn speed is 5. So I'm just going to save, and let's just see if this guy actually how he works now. Okay, so he's facing the wrong way, and he's shooting a lot of bullets. Wow, that's pretty cool. This is the best way to learn how to do things. If you just mess around with things and try things out, you'll be amazed at the results that you can sometimes get. It's fun. It's actually really cool. So yeah, obviously that's not right, but it's still friggin' cool. So let's try to fix this. I was pretty sure when I added this that it wasn't going to be right. So all we need to do is I'll just grab this here, target dot position. I'll cut that out, and then we'll have paste it there and do a minus. So we'll do the transform dot position. So from this position minus the target position, which is our player. Save that. Oh, I know what we've done. Hang on. We haven't reset our fire rate. So this is not a very good way to do it. You shouldn't hard code your fire rate, obviously, because you want to be able to change it, but I'm just going to hard code it. And if I need to change my fire rate now, I'll actually have to change it here, okay? It won't make any difference if I change it anywhere else, because it'll make a difference for the first shot, but after it shoots the first shot, it's always only going to use this one here, okay? So if you want to change your fire rate using this script, you'll need to change it here, okay? So save that. And now let's see if this little guy is actually looking at us. Okay, so he's looking at us now, and he's instantiating the bullets every 0.2 seconds, and he's definitely following us around. And because we're using a lerp, it's not like he's just instantly staring at you. It's like it's more smooth, it's more realistic. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. We're halfway there. So that's all well and good. Now we need to actually make the bullet do something. The bullet needs to actually come after the player. So we can do this if we go into our scripts again, enemy scripts, and let's just make a new script and call it enemy projectile. It's not letting me open it, so obviously, yeah. If you can't open a script, as I've said before, go into Visual Studio and it'll usually just be this convert line endings crap, so you need to make sure you check that. And for this projectile, what we're going to want to do, like you could just make the bullet shoot out forward from where it is, but I don't like doing that generally. I actually want it to shoot at the player, and then I could kind of mess with the bullet. Like say I didn't want the bullet to be like really accurate or whatever, I can mess with it, but you could do that also if it was just shooting straight out. But this is how I'm going to do it anyway. So let's just, we also want to get a reference to the actual player. And we also want to have some type of damage that this bullet will inflict on the player. So we can do serialized field first, and we'll do a float, and we'll call it damage, and we'll just say it does like 10 damage to the player at the moment. Oh, we definitely need a reference to our rigid body, of course, and I'll just call that RB. And what else? Oh, we're going to need some type of speed. So how fast this bullet's actually going to travel. So float, speed, and it's going to have to be quite high. So we'll just try 500 to start with. And let's just do our awake function. So we'll do void awake. So as soon as this bullet's instantiated, if you use a wake function, this will be called as soon as the bullet is actually instantiated. So first of all, if we're going to be adding forces to our rigid body, we need to actually have a reference to this rigid body. So we could just say rigid body equals get component rigid body. It's that easy because the rigid body is actually attached to this bullet. And we're going to need a direction that the rigid body can actually the direction we want it to go. So I'll just go back to our enemy AI, and I'll just use this direction, paste that there. So it's a vector 3. Oh, we haven't got our target yet, obviously. So what we'll do is right here we will say transform target equals game object dot find game object with tag, and that of course is our player dot transform, same as we did before. So now we actually have our target, and we can add some force to this rigid body now. So let's do rigid body dot add force, and the force is going to be in the direction that we've just made, and it's going to be times by the speed, and then we're going to times it by time dot delta time. Okay, I'll make sure I control shift and save everything. Let's just get this bullet shooting towards the player before we worry about anything else. So now what's it doing? Is it shooting towards us? I don't think it's actually shooting towards us, is it? Kinda. Let's have a look. I don't think I put that on the actual bullet, to be honest. So let's let's go back into the prefab, and yeah, we probably want to put this script on the actual bullet. So we'll call this enemy projectile. Find that. There we go. Bang. And now you should get something happening. Look at that. There we go. So it's actually shooting towards the player. Kind of. It's just a little bit slow, that's all. So what we can do is just for now, let's actually let's actually go back to this script. That's right, we hard coded it. So in the enemy shoot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 0.05 for now, so it doesn't shoot so many. And on our projectile, let's do this like 5,000. Let's try that. Okay, so we're getting a little bit better effect now. We could probably make the robot, you know, follow the player a little bit faster, but yeah, basically we're getting there, guys. That's pretty cool. So he's following the player and he's shooting these projectiles at him. Obviously they're not doing anything now, and they're not, you know, they're just bouncing around everywhere, which isn't good. We don't really want them to stay in the scene because we're just going to end up with thousands and thousands of these rigid body projectiles, which are going to sap up all our performance. So I'm actually going to double that speed, 10,000, and I'm going to make the turn speed twice that, and then we are going to make this bullet actually damage the player. So we can say, if we do a void on collision enter, and we can say if collision dot transform dot tag is equal to player. So if this rigid body collides with a game object with a collider on it, obviously, that is tagged player, then we're going to do this. So I don't know if I've used on collision enter before, but it's similar to on trigger enter. The only difference is that it's actually looking for a collision. It's not looking for this to actually enter a collider that's actually marked as a trigger. And when you're using a on trigger enter, you don't have to worry about the dot transform. But when you're using collision, you need the dot transform. If you were just using on trigger enter, you would have probably other instead of collision. It'd be other dot tag equal to player. And this one's collision dot transform. You can change this to other if you want. You know, you can change that to whatever name you want as long as you use the same name there. But I like to leave it like collision because we're actually looking for a collision. So if we collide with the player, then we're going to want to access the player's health and do some damage. So it's very easy to do as well. So we can just say player health, and we're going to call it player health. Let's keep it easy, and that will equal collision dot transform dot get component. The component we want to get is the player's health. And now we can simply just say player health dot, let's go to player health for a second, add health, player damage. So it's actually called player damage. That's what we need to call. So we say player damage, and then we simply just pass in our damage float, which is just called damage. So we're going to take 10 health away from the player. And to solve our other problem, if it actually misses us, we want it to be destroyed. We don't want them all just floating around. So else destroy game object. So if it collides with anything that's not the player, we want to destroy it. But also, I suppose if we hit the player, we want to destroy it as well. We don't want it to hit the player and then just keep, you know, bouncing around. So we'll call destroy after we've taken some damage from the player. So if we save that and go back into Unity, okay, so that's working. We're getting drilled. So if I'm moving, I can actually avoid the bullets quite easily. I'm just moving to the side. But if we're standing still, he never misses, which I don't really want that. I prefer to make it so that there's a little bit of variation in the bullets, so they're not always just going to hit us if we're standing there. Maybe we could make, randomize it a bit so that some bullets miss, and I'm not happy with how easy it is to avoid getting shot. Like I could just do this and just keep shooting him, but so we need to make him, let's try 30, and let's get this projectile like 20,000. See how that is. Hmm. So it looks like them bullets, they must be hitting the ground maybe, and then just disappearing some of them. Okay. So what I might do is turn speed to 100 and 50,000. That's better. That's better. Okay, sweet. So that's good. Now we just need to add a little bit of variation to the bullet direction so that it's not gonna sorry, it's not gonna hit the player every single time. So to do that is actually really easy. I've used this a lot in my 2D games. Obviously, not the same as this. The only difference actually is in 2D you generally use vector 2s, and a vector 2. If I haven't, I don't know if I've even talked about this stuff before, but a vector 2 basically will just use the x and y. So let's click on something. What can we click on? The player. Yeah, okay. So there we go. We have our axis. The y is green going up, and the x is the red one going from side to side. So in 2D, that's all you need. In 2D, obviously you don't have the z-axis, which is the forward and back. Excuse me. So yeah, the difference between a vector 2 and a vector 3 is a vector 3 uses all three axes, and the vector 2 only uses the x and y. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to randomize this direction here. And we can do that by making another vector 3. So we can say vector 3, and we'll call this bullet, oh god, bullet accuracy. And that can be equal to a new vector 3. And all we're doing here is we're creating this new vector 3 variable, and it's just called bullet accuracy. So what we're doing with bullet accuracy is we're actually using that to create a new vector 3 that'll take in the x, y, and z. As I just explained before, a vector 3 needs to have all three axes. And what we can actually do, like, so it would have to be like, 0, 0, 0 like that. That would be x, y, and z. So this would actually do nothing. This would just zero out the vectors on each axis. So what we need to do is, instead of having that, we could just do random.range. So this is on the x. So we could do random.range, and we could make the range between, say, 0 and we don't want it to have too much variance, because otherwise that's going to be too inaccurate. So say like 1.2, and oh yeah, because I'm using a decimal, we need to put an F because it's a float, okay? And then we could literally just do, let's just do exactly the same for each one and see, just test it out. That's all you can do in game development. That's all I do. You just do things and test it out and see what happens, and then you take it from there. If it doesn't work, or if it, sometimes it actually does something better than what you were trying to do in the first place. So you just don't be scared to mess around, okay? It's fun. So now that we have this new vector 3 variable, which is completely randomized, it's randomized on the x between 0 and 1.2, it's randomized on the y between 0 and 1.2, and it's randomized on the z between 0 and 1.2. So it could pick a number between 0 and 1.2 for each one of these axes, and then we can simply just, on our direction here, we'll put this in brackets so that it's just easier, and then we could just say plus bullet accuracy, like that. So now it's actually, this direction is the exact direction between the player and the bullet, and now we're going to be adding all of these random values to this direction as well. So it'll create a little bit of variance. So let's just have a look and see how it acts. I've honestly got no idea if this, okay. So as you can see, there you go, we got hit, miss, 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 miss. Okay, so that's probably a bit too much variance. Like, we don't want to just be standing there in front of it and it's missing. Like, it is hitting us, but you probably want it to be a little bit more accurate than that, unless it's a complete potato of a friggin' turret. But anyway, let's do 1.1, 1.1, 1.1, save that, and we'll see how we go this time. Miss, 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 miss. Okay, Jesus, come on. There we go. Okay, he's still rubbish. Let's just dull this down a little bit. So let's just go like 0 0.8, 0 0.8, 0 0.8. So we should be more accurate now, you would think. Let's have a look. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's perfect. I love it. That's good. Okay, we just got killed. So I'm pretty happy with that. So let's also add a audio source. And we'll call this shoot audio source. And let's just say shoot audio source dot play and save that. So when we go into our script now for our projectile, we need to actually have an audio source. So add component audio source. Oh, we actually didn't hang on. We can't just say, we need to actually say shoot audio source equals get component audio source. Okay. And now all we need to do, I'm just going to lock this for a second. So this is on our projectile. So I'm just going to go into our audio, and we don't have minigun shooting, so just for testing purposes, let's just use the AK. So this should play every time a new bullet's spawned. It just play the shoot sound for us. So that's pretty cool. And actually, we'll test that out first. Always test it out, make sure it works. Okay, that's cool, but the problem is when the bullet hits us and gets destroyed, it automatically cuts off the audio source. So I don't really like that. There is a way you can there is, I can't remember what it is. I've used it before. You can actually stop it from doing that, but I'm just going to cut that out. I'm going to our enemy shoot. And we'll add it in here. Audio source. Shoot audio source. And then Control V that there. Cut that one back out. So we're actually getting the audio source, and then when we shoot, we can just call it to audio source.play. Save that. Save this one as well. And then on the actual robot himself, make sure we unlock the inspector. We'll just add the audio source to here, and we'll drag the AK shoot into there. I might just do like 0.5 for the volume. Let's have a look. That's better. Okay, and you can mess with them random values. Like you can make it really accurate if you want. Just lower the values. Like lower it from 0.8, you know. You could have that like 0.15, 0.2, whatever, and it'd be super accurate. Or just don't have any accuracy modifier at all. Just leave it so it just shoots directly at the player if you want a really accurate turret. But yeah, that's fine. I'm just thinking, do we need to do it? Oh, we didn't actually do the muzzle flash either, did we? We may as well add that while we're here. This tutorial is probably going on too long now, but anyway. Hopefully you guys, hopefully it's worth it. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. So, particle system. I've actually had fun making this one, to be honest. I haven't done something like this for a while. So, particle system, and it is our muzzle flash, of course. And we want oh shit, that's in the projectile. Oops, sorry, cut that out. We don't want it in the projectile, obviously. We want it in this one. in our enemy shoot. So I'll put that there. On start, we'll just make sure the muzzle flash isn't playing. So we'll just stop it. We might not need that, but we'll just chuck it there in case. And then we'll just do muzzle flash dot play here. And let's have a look. Oh, I'll just make sure we actually put the muzzle flash in there. Be handy. Now we should have a muzzle flash. Yeah, it's very small. We probably make that muzzle flash a bit bigger. But yeah, it's working. So I think that's about it. I can't really think of anything else I need to do. I've got that, the accuracy. Yeah, obviously we can add more to this. I'll probably do more to this later on in the series. We could make this little dude move around and fly. Like he's got like a little fire burster thing on the bottom of him, so he could actually fly around. But we could make him fly around. So yeah. So yeah, Ballin, I hope that helped you out and put you on the right track to what you wanted. Have an enemy shooting at the player. Alright guys, I enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed it too, and I will see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.